Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Honor the Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Ledford, and today we have the incredible Stacy Vajta with us. I'm really excited about that. And as you know, we start each episode with an image and story from my travels. Because when I was out in the world, when I was traveling, is when I really started to hear my intuition again. She'd gotten muffled in the day-to-day chaos and expectations and to-do lists. But as I got out in the world, I started to hear her whispering again. And I know she was always there, but it was just that place where I could step into a deeper relationship with her again. So today, our image is called Buddha Wall, and it was taken in Malacca, Malaysia. The architecture of Malacca is enchanting. Days can be spent wandering through the streets, marveling at the detail and color of buildings. Tucked away on the side of a nondescript concrete building, an artistic vision is found. The Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree image is a reminder to those passing by to take the time and reflect during their busy days. There is even immense beauty within the concrete background with its various textures and many pockmarks. This simplistic beauty could be easily overlooked and a gorgeous reminder to pause for everyday beauty. And this is the image that reminds me of our guest today, Stacy Vajta. Stacy, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Ooh, excited. So share yourself with us. Tell us about you.
Yeah. I am a healer. I am a wisdom teacher, and I'm a writer. And I love to be able to really say that now, because that question used to just freak me out.
And I think we've all been through that, right? That I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like so much of my journey has been around coming into the truth of who I am. And I even get chills just sort of talking about that, because I think that is so, so important for all of us. And I really feel like that's been like a big journey, and to be able to really show up finally and just say, this is who I am. I am a healer, and I am a teacher, and I am a writer. And I love to just get people into really juicy, deep internal experiences to, tap into what's unseen, right? Where we get information from the unseen world, our inner wisdom and all the energy and, and all of that, so that we can actually learn something about ourselves, create, more awareness, and then figure out how we're going to take that out into the world and really show up as that. Right.
Gosh, that just so resonates, because that feels like also a journey that I'm continually on. And there are times when it's much more clear and I have much more clarity, and times when it feels a little muddy. But that feeling, I now can feel that feeling when it's welling up from within me versus spinning out of my head.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is. And I think that's the journey, right? It's the journey to figure out your truth, to live your truth, to know your truth, and where we either hide from that, or where we are too afraid to stand in the power of that, or where we have been so invalidated in so many different ways that we don't even recognize that anymore. And that's why I love taking people into these really creative internal processes, because I really think that that's the place that we find that truth, especially if we don't see it or live it in the outside world necessarily, but we can go inward and we can feel our energy. We can sense that inner wisdom. We can really connect into that deeper truth, and it validates us, right? We kind of go, oh, I do know who I am. I recognize that in some way. And then we have to figure out how to put it out there, in the world. But, it is finding our truth. And when we can get that deep in the belly, and really understand it and have, I think, a visceral sense of it, that's when we can really start to, stand in the power of that, which is the journey.
And there's something so beautiful there about the remembering versus the learning. And,
yes.
And in this deep work, it often feels like a remembering to me, just the way I started to hear my intuition again. That was always there. That wisdom is within us. Mm-hmm. But the unlocking, the enlivening can often be the tricky starting point.
It really can. And I think, what you said about, like letting it come from within you and not your head. I think that's the same as with, intuition and really tapping into that inner wisdom. So many people that I work with, it's like, well, I don't see, I'm trying to see, and I'll say, well, maybe you don't see, maybe you hear, or you just know, or you have just an imagination, that feeds you, that comes in so many different ways. And I think that we can get in our heads and, and really kind of do a number on ourselves to not recognize our own deep, wisdom and our intuition and how we talk to ourselves from, that unseen world, our higher selves or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of, rules that people have sort of put on that,
Well, I think our culture really values coming from that headspace, and it disconnects us from our bodies, from the wisdoms of our physiology, from our inner selves, from that inner divinity that lives within us. And I mean, that has been, it continues to be my journey, right? I'm very heady. I'm a bright girl. I can rationalize till the day's end. But really connecting to my heart, connecting to my womb space, really listening to the whispers of my intuition. And there's a practice there. Like, it's like anything. You practice. For me, I practice that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, what we talked about this once before, but, for me, I was almost the opposite. I mean, I'm very logical at times. I've been, doing work like that really needed a lot of organization, out there in the business world. But my internal process was so like go down the rabbit hole, kind of internalize everything, that I had to kind of learn how to stop that a little bit and move things back out into action. And so that's a practice too, right? Of figuring out like how much processing, is needed, right? To be able to get that information that you need. And then like, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to move that out in the world? And how are you going to practice that as an act of personal growth and energetic, shifting and, all of that, as we move through the world. So.
Yeah, and that is the direct opposite of my experience. Mine is about thinking, head, doing for doing's sake, as by checking off the list, my self-worth is being shored up. And now I'm finding if I can get to the intention and then move into action, that serves me a whole heck of a lot better. And so for you, you've got all the intention and you're moving it into action. And I think that's so... I think there's going to be listeners who are like, oh, I resonate with this one or that one. Cause really it's an opposite experience of the world. And yet the consequence of not doing the work is neither of us are in service of the world the way we're meant to be.
Right.
Until we start the process of pulling that apart.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty, of the work of like finding that balance and how do you move in and move out and then move in and move out. And, there are days where I really am sort of much more, logical, and I have to remind myself, oh, I need to go outside and take a walk, or I need to just sit down and meditate, or I need to do something. And then there's other days when I'm way on that other end of the continuum and I have to be like, I just have to pick, one thing I need to go out and do, so it's fluid, right? You have to be, that's consciousness, right? Of moving along, and understanding where you are and where you need to shift into do to get things to happen or to really, be in the flow in some way.
Yeah. And for me, part of my journey has been learning to trust the flow. Mm.
That's everybody's thing. I don't know if I've met anybody who hasn't been trying to work on that. It's such a hard thing, right? Of just trusting that, in this moment, I'm just going to zig instead of zag and, and I'm going to go where my attention wants me to go or where that, whatever it is that's kind of drawing my attention. And I'm going to trust if I go there, then I'm going to get somewhere, sometimes that's hard, because we do want to be in doing, maybe I should be doing this. And if I do more of this, instead of sometimes the really things that feel almost just not logical that come in that take us down a different path, and we have to trust all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to go, wow, I just have to stop kind of struggling here and just follow what feels right.
So for someone who's listening, who's thinking, oh, I'm sort of lacking that clarity right now, and I'm just not sure. What are some, is there like one or two tools for that you use to start sort of tapping into that?
To tap into inner wisdom and what's going on within.
To get to that truer, that truer truth, that truer self.
The deep truth, the big truth, the truth with a big T.
Knowing that it's a process, but sort of that, if there's a way in which you have a stepping off point or two to start to feel in.
Mm-hmm. I look at a couple different things. I think that sometimes being really creative can kind of get you into that. And I actually have a belief that the more creative the processes are, at least that I do, the more it kind of breaks me out of what my brain is thinking, and it gets me into some other level of wisdom. So for some people, I think it's, art or drawing or doodling or, whatever it is, and kind of starting to look at, what's there and how do you connect what you're feeling about what you're drawing or doodling, that then you can start to kind of analyze it in a little bit of a sense of like, oh, this is what this means to me. Now, how do I understand that? Mm-hmm. So there's one avenue. Journaling, I think, is a really great way for certain people who like to write or who are okay with that. It's not for everybody. But, definitely I love to just kind of do like dearly beloved kind of, journaling where I'll tap into, my higher self or just the universe or just, angels or whoever. And I'll just say, I'm going to ask you to speak to me. Here's my question. And I just kind of start with dearly beloved as if they're speaking to me. And I just write for like 5 minutes and just let whatever wants to come out onto the page. And then I review it to see like what pops up for me. And then the work, is really about like, well, what does what's speaking to me, within that, and what do I want to do with that? And kind of a meditation thing. I'm never not like a kind of, om meditator. I tend to be looking for things, when I'm, watching my energy and being like, oh, what am I noticing? So for me, those are kind of my tools, and that's how I often kind of work with people to get them in the way that they want to get into their intuition, because we all do find it differently.
Yeah. And what you spoke to was a space to play.
Yes.
In whatever way sparks you in a given moment. And, today may be journaling and tomorrow may be coloring and the next day may be painting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of getting back into that more and more and more. I think I got kind of rigid for a while, and sort of how I was doing things, and a lot of what I'm doing, with my work and just with my personal work, it really is kind of coming back into like just these sort of creative play, because I always talk about play with energy work, and we always need to kind of be in that space, and I think that's how we kind of get out of our heads to access that. But like the more creative kind of stuff to me just feels, yummy. It's the rituals or, the art, and it's not art for art's sake. It's just like the doodling and the drawing and the coloring and the painting, or, whatever it is, or, just making neat little areas in the house that have, little spots that feel magical. Those kinds of things to me, do more than maybe like a bigger, I'm going to sit down and really meditate and try to figure, something out. Just it gets us out of ourselves, in some way.
Yeah, so. That's, I think with all of it, with all these things, that sense of play. I mean, we were talking as we started this around, the goddess oracle cards and how I play in that arena. It's not about seriousness or how does this touch this moment, or it's like, what's the inspiration? And maybe it really resonates one day, and maybe the next day it doesn't so much. Or maybe it gives me pause to think about how it could. But it's all in play. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of think that that's the way that the guides talk to us too, though. I mean, at least my guides do, it's just like, oh, she's getting too serious again. Let's, get her out of that, or, and they'll, give me something kind of cryptic or something. So, yeah, we've got to get out of our humdrum kind of, world in some way, and play is a great way to do it, especially with things that you can't really see, that unseen, world where it is hard to grab onto things, to have something really concrete that's kind of playful, that's creative in some way that you can really connect to. I think that's how we start to, figure out like, how do you apply meaning to, this kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. But,
yeah, no, yeah. To me, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Without the space that I've created to play in the last couple of years, because before that, play wasn't really, I didn't really value it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do it much. And now, I have more intention around creating that space to play, and, it's shifted so many things, because it just gives me, that plays not to be so serious. That plays to actually play with how I want to show up, right? Instead of showing up as I think others want me to, I get to play. I mean, you and I talked about when we sat down a few weeks ago that I used to sit down in meetings and have expectations about what I wanted to come out of these connections. Now, I show up present and playful. And that creates so much more beauty. And there's not those moments that the expectations don't creep in. That happens too. Yeah. But it's more of an intention about being present and playful and seeing what happens.
Yeah. It's funny because we were having a conversation, a group of us, a few days ago, kind of around this in terms of like how we work and, working with other people. And, there were some people who were, like, yeah, I really kind of come in and this is kind of what I want to teach. And this is the information I want to pass on. And I kind of do the same thing with my clients. I just sort of show up, I'm like, what's going on, and let's look at your energy and see where we go. And I think that, some people can be really more comfortable with that than others, because it is scary to think, can I trust again, where I'm going to go with this? Am I going to hear the right thing or, find the path? And, that's the same with whatever you're doing, whether it's, working with a client or sort of, being out there in the world, or kind of what we were talking about, earlier of just like, I'm just going to trust this flow of my attention is taking me over here. I'm going to go over here and see what happens. And trust that I will get where I need to get to, So I think it's a thing that we learn, to be able to kind of do that with any kind of level of, comfort or trust,
Just like everything, it's practice.
Yeah. And sometimes it'll get messy. Like there are times where I'm kind of feeling like, where am I going with this? What's going to happen here? And then we always get somewhere,
That's so funny. I just did an opening circle for some sacred space I opened up for this community in a sacred space on Facebook. And I did during the full moon, and yeah, I was like, oh, why is it not coming to me what I'm going to do for this? And then I just had to keep trusting and keep open and create the space. And then, yeah, something really beautiful came about. And it was exactly as it was meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's that when you come to that authentic point, that to me, this is what it feels like. It feels like when I can finally get there and just kind of trust, it's like I relax, I drop into something, and I feel like I'm just kind of held. And then I get chills with that too. You just kind of find like, yes, you find that deep, like, yes, this is right. Okay, we're flowing now. And I feel held, and then I can hold that kind of energetically for, whoever else is, participating, and they can kind of drop into it too.
Yeah, and I feel like I've spent a lot of my life trying to manufacture that and control it versus trust it.
Yeah.
And all of this is a process. So those moments of trying to manhandle it and control it, those still arise regularly.
Yeah. Well, we're not taught how to do any of this, right? This is the feminine way, right? The feminine energy. And for so long, there were a lot of folks, back where I lived in California, and it was, years ago, but it was kind of that beginning of this is the feminine way of doing business, right? That feminine energy coming in, and this is the way of doing it. And this energy was in there, and it was about sort of just showing up in this way and kind of allowing the movement and the flow and, the engagement in the community and, like coming into things from that really authentic place. And that was all really new. And it was sort of like, well, how do we do that? What does that really look like?
I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah. Me too, right? Yeah. It's it's a shift, for all of us. But I think the thing for me that I always try to come back to, which is my lesson, which is where it really is hard, is to just be like, let me just stop trying to I'm going to let my belly relax, and I'm just going to let myself relax. I'm going to trust, and I'm just going to connect and not try to be 2 steps ahead and see what happens. Yeah.
That's very interesting when you talk about the belly, because I've had this realization in the last few months that my solar plexus, the chakra there at my solar plexus, that I keep that really tight because it's a way in which I push into the world. So instead of tapping down through my womb and my root chakra so that I feel really grounded and things can well up more fluidly, more easefully, I instead hold really tight at the solar plexus and then push out through that from that space. And that's a lot of energy. And as I'm playing with dropping deeper, I can feel all the things that can be created without my getting depleted in the process.
Yeah. I do something kind of similar. It's definitely in the belly, in that third chakra, and it's tight and it kind of pulls in, and, I'll notice it. And it's more of like a protection, for me, of just how do I sort of protect and, stay alert and stay in control and, get into that. And then I can stop and relax. And I have this kind of visual for myself of when I can get myself into that really deeply grounded space that, so often when I connect into that deeper earth energy and I let my energy, my vibration find something within the earth, it feels like community down there to me. I mean, there's sometimes like almost a sense of like this grid, and sometimes we can connect into certain grids, vibrations that the earth is holding that sort of similar people seem to be connected into. And my little visual is if I can get myself into that, then I feel like I have like all this community or this support kind of coming up from that. Yeah, because that surprised me many years ago when I kind of started really noticing a really different way of like how we were connecting into the planet and sort of like what was going on there, that there is like a lot of people's energy down there. There's so much that we can connect into and use, And so for me, I keep trying to think, well, if I can just kind of connect to that and pull that up, then I can relax into that and just kind of stop needing to barricade and fight and control and push and just know that there's a whole bunch of other folks that are down there who are just like me. It's really connecting into that.
Yeah, just as we're talking about it, I can feel myself like even dropping further into it. That's beautiful.
Cool.
So we've been dancing around it the whole time, but how do you honor the feminine and stay in touch with your intuition?
I'm getting back to what I felt, back in the early days when, this is a long time ago when I started getting into, all this energetic, stuff. And I was really much more creative then. I did mask making and I still have masks up. And, I did a lot of little, like neat little spaces around the house and just kind of the pretty, that I like. And for me, that's how I'm really kind of coming back into it and even taking, clients there and carving out some of that time to do the journaling and to do the writing and to do the art and the mask making, because to me that is kind of how I can honor, again, what was like, whoa, this stuff is so cool. Like I'm really connecting into me and, that my inner wisdom. And I think for a long time, I kind of, I would do a lot of energy work, but it felt like it was a chore. It felt like I was doing healing on myself and I was working through something. So coming back into art and, really creative things and yummy is just the word that I always use with it.
I love that word. When it feels yummy, move in that direction.
Yeah. So little things, to me, is kind of how I'm doing that right now, really connecting back into more wisdom and nature. I had a wonderful opportunity to head out up into the woods with a friend who takes people up into the woods, and it was just so nice to like talk to the trees and, just slow down. And I think more of that, because I kind of like what you said with, you're not getting out and doing a lot of play, or you didn't get out and do a lot of play. I feel like I really didn't do a lot of that either. I didn't go outside. I didn't, take advantage of these beautiful, mountains. And so I'm getting back into that, and that feels really important. And it almost feels like kind of going back full circle back to how I really started, on this journey, where there were rituals and I have my drum and I drum and, and do all those kinds of things. Gosh,
that idea brings me to, like, it brought up The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, that idea of the journey back to the exact spot, but you're different as you arrive.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I'm coming at it from a really different level of awareness. Right. So I'm looking at it from a very different perspective, and I'm engaging with the process, I think, in a really different way. Yeah. And I think I'm getting more information, out of it, because I know that I can look at, the energy and the this and the that. I'm just connected into, so much more now than I was, 30 some years ago, and because we weren't talking about half the things that we talked about, light language and, grids and, all the, the energetic stuff that, so many people talk about
the chakras, really.
Yeah. I mean, chakras. Yeah. I mean, just
even
like the
20, 30 years ago, people weren't really talking about that.
Yeah. When I kind of started, we definitely weren't talking about, light language or crystalline grids. And, it was for me, it was very kind of shamanic and, nature spirit kind of, energy, and definitely energy, because I started out doing a lot of intuitive work and then, body work. And so there was energy and chakras and, all that kind of stuff, but it changed. And so coming back to what I started then from, having what I think of as more of a multidimensional, awareness now. It's sort of like, well, look at that. Look at that, And
that taps into a beautiful theme that has been coming up recently around all these threads. So you talked about sort of the body work and the this thread and that thread, and that beautiful way in which we all have these threads and are weaving our own unique tapestry. Even if as we move in the direction of something that sparks for us, we're not sure how it fits.
Yeah. And to me, that's really important. I mean, it's been really important in my own life and my work, definitely as a healer, of pulling all these different things together. I've never kind of followed a particular model, but I look at it now from the context even of my life. Where, other work that I did, that really has, taught me all kinds of things, even like, social media and marketing and, everything that I've done. It was probably about a month or two ago, and it kind of dawned on me like, wow, like look at all of these things that I've done, and I've kind of drawn together, and how they do make me, so that when I do just show up, to these conversations, I really feel like I have a lot to draw on. And I know that we all have that. And I know that for a lot of, folks that I, work with or talk with, it's that going out of that box, of like, well, this is the modality maybe that I work with. It's really scary, for some people to really say, well, I'm going to break some of these rules and I'm going to pull this in and I'm going to integrate this with this and I'm going to bring this idea and I'm going to mash it up with that. And, it is scary sometimes, to do that. And that's, something that, I see sometimes with a lot of healers, that they get kind of in one, this is my modality, but it's like, wow, just, if you pull it all in, then you can be in that place of, I'm just showing up and I'm just going to go where I need to go. Yeah. Because I know I have this huge toolkit, to draw from.
And we're back to the trust.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To trust that you can utilize all of your tools is, it's, that's where we have to really grow into. I mean, that's coming back to even like, who am I? Well, I have all of this, to offer, and might just put a little label on it, but wow, it's all there, So.
Yeah, that desire to label. And it is important to be able to talk about what we do, but yeah, it's a interesting balance. It's an interesting balance between the two.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be able to define things.
But there's a way in which we just radiate out our uniqueness as we get, as we deepen our relationship with that tapestry that we've woven.
Yes. Yeah. And as we deepen our relationship with that deeper truth, right? Of really seeing who we are and honoring that and validating that and letting that come out, that's really when all of that can really start to shine and we can really, show up in that. And that's just a huge focus for me, I think, because for me, so long, I kind of shoved all that stuff down and, kind of lived in that place of, well, I can't be this. I have to be something else. And,
I just got this certification, so now I'm this.
Yeah. But even just in life of just like, I am a healer and, sort of where that was just like poo-pooed and, sort of all the, family stuff, of like, oh, you got to be kidding me, you're going to do what, but to find what's really real and true and what we are interested in all of the different places that we kind of operate in the world, and in our ideas, to be able to really say, this is real. This is my truth. I am going to own this. And I'm going to stand in that, to me is just that's what it's about, and I know that's been my journey, and that's a journey I love to help other people on, because when it's not there, it's really hard. We swim upstream and we keep blocking ourselves because we're not saying that this can happen or this can happen, because we're just not seeing it in ourselves.
Yeah, it's that place where our gifts can emanate from. And the way in which we're meant to be of service in the world.
Yeah. It's got to come from within us. Yeah.
On that note, my love, are you ready for the random questions? Because that's such a beautiful, that it must come from within us. So, yeah. Are you ready for the random questions?
Yes.
All right. So if you could sit down with a woman, alive or dead, for a chat and tea, who would it be?
I'm going to say Lucille Ball.
I love that answer. I've heard it once before, and I love Lucille Ball.
Yeah. And, we're talking about play, right? We've been talking about that. And, for me, I think that there's a couple sides of her that I feel, and this was just sort of I did think about that this morning and kind of went, who? And then I went, oh, that's it. Lucille Ball, because she was so, she kind of kicked butt out there in the world, right? She had, her business and, everything else that she was doing. And so, she really kind of pushed the envelope out there. But what I also really wanted to kind of tap in, if I could, from her, would be just to be able to see the humor in the world, and to be able to look at the small little funny things that go on and not get hung up on it, and to be able to make fun, because that's that place where I've just been so and I needed to just go, you know what, I just need to lighten up and look at the things that are happening and just kind of let them be funny, or find the humor in it, and just to laugh and to, see kind of the insanity in a different way.
There's that one classic one where she and Ethel are working at the chocolate factory, and the conveyor belt starts going too fast, and they're putting them in their mouths and down their bras. And forever I will. Yeah. That'll be something that'll bring a smile to my face.
Yeah.
Think about that. The legacy of putting out something in the world that always brings a smile to a person's face. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And just, I wonder what her brain is like, to be able to sort of, come up with things. And, if that was sort of, part of the conversation, that would be really fun to kind of see, how does she think, and what kinds of funny things could she just come up with, just to, so that's who I wanted to sit with.
I love it. I want to be in that conversation.
You're welcome to join us.
So the second question is, where would you most like to travel?
Oh, gosh. I have not traveled a whole lot. I really do want to go to, England, Scotland. That's a place that I have been very attracted to. Mostly just because, I think so many of us probably feel connected, to that, I think women who are into the mystical, or, the energetic, and, the goddess, and, there's so much
the sacred sites
there. Yeah. So definitely going and just, maneuvering all through, England and Scotland and Ireland, and just, head up there and just check it out. And, I feel like the land more than anything, is kind of what I get called to. The cliffs and the, just the terrain, for some reason, is kind of what calls me. So I know one day I will get there and get myself out of here and it's all about. I always say, why not? I can work from anywhere. I can just kind of go for a couple months.
I love that idea. So my love, how do we reach out and connect with you?
You can reach me at my website, which is theeverydaylightworker.com. Okay. And there's all kinds of fun things that you can get there if you want to. And Facebook is always a great place. So the Everyday Lightworker at Facebook. And I like to play on Instagram too, which you can find. I think I'm there as Stacy Vajta. So you'll have to search around.
Well, we will put all of that on the show notes for this episode so people can go over to honorthefeminine.com and click in with you that way really easily.
Cool. Yeah. It's great. I love to connect with people on Facebook and anywhere, so I love to chat.
Thank you for today. This was so fun.
Thank you. It was fun. I just love that we just sort of went wherever we went, right?
That's the play.
Thanks so much.
Hello again, everyone. I loved being with Stacy today. It was such a beautiful unfolding around trusting and standing in the power of your truth. And if you want to connect with Stacy, you can get all the information over at the show notes at honorthefeminine.com. I also wanted to wish you a happy International Women's Day. So if you're listening to us in the morning on March 8th, we are doing a virtual circle in celebration of International Women's Day at noon Eastern today on March 8th. And all of that information you can find on our Facebook page where how to join us for that. If you'd also like to deepen into sisterhood with me and all our sisters in our sacred space on Facebook, you can find us at Honor the Feminine Daily. We've just been cultivating connection in that sacred space, and I love all the beautiful connections that are being created. If you love today's podcast, please share it with a friend. It's really how I find all the new podcasts that I listen to and love. All right, everyone, have a beautiful day.